ANC is facing pressure tonight to win back the confidence of NUM members who booed party president Cyril Ramaphosa at that Workers' Day rally in the northwest yesterday. The striking mine workers say the ANC has abandoned them and were unconvinced by Ramaphosa's promise to intervene in their strike at Stillwater. For more on this, we're joined tonight by former NUM Secretary General Frans Baleni. Mr. Baleni, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Where does what we saw happen at the Royal Bafokeng Stadium yesterday leave relations between the ANC and Cosatus more broadly, do you think?
Good evening, and good evening to the viewers at home. Firstly, it's very abnormal, especially in the private sector, when there's a collective bargaining dispute. There's expectation that a head of state or any politician, for that matter, should intervene. Having served in the union and participated from 1982, at no stage we have ever asked any politician for a favor, because you put so much pressure to the employer that the employer must come to you and beg you to go back to work or make certain concessions. Now, I find it very strange. I think the unions have been weakened by fragmentation, hence they end up asking for political intervention. If president can do in this dispute, what more about other unions and other affiliates, including those who are outside Cosatus? Should the president or any other minister should intervene?
So, based on what you're saying, there was also the response from the president yesterday who said to the workers that there would be now a conversation between government, now happening between, from Minister Gwede Mandasha, the Minerals Minister, as per the commitment made by the president. What do you make of him making that commitment, and what you said? Does that then set a dangerous precedent where all unions will now demand direct intervention from the president or a minister?
I think it set a bad precedent. At best, a call can be made for parties to come together, but really for the head of state to intervene in a collective bargaining matter is but stretching it too far. When
is it appropriate, I suppose, to get a response from a president or a minister to a strike, a labor issue?
Let's take, for example, the mining dispute right now, and this mining Sibanye. At best, the minister of DMRE, right, for stability in the sector, is for the minister to call the parties involved. Can you solve the strike? Because it's not in the best interest of the industry and a number of stakeholders who are benefiting and who are losing during a strike. Remember, there are transport service providers, you name them, who are actually losing out when there's a strike.
But this particular strike at Stillwater has gone on 7 weeks, now going into its 8th week. The fact that there's been no such intervention, or at least no successful intervention, speaks to a failure, does it not, when you consider just how crucial mining is still to this country's economy, and especially the employment of the poorest South Africans, it must be said?
I think the failure is on the parties who are in dispute. At no stage, both the employer and the union, should they allow a strike to go for this extended period of time. We used to call grasshopper strike, so that in a relationship, your partner must never discover that they can do without you. If you recall, Tebekile, there was a strike of 5 months in the Platinum Belt. That strike, because of that 5 months period, after that there were layoffs. So the employer was able to say, by the way, we can do with fewer workers. And mechanization was introduced to a certain extent. So I blame the parties involved in this strike. They shouldn't allow the strike to prolong so long.
Do you think this meeting that's happening later this week, which Minister Gwede Mandasha says will be at least the first face-to-face discussions between Sibanye, AMCU and NUM, do you think that will actually produce any real outcome when you consider that the workers are saying we want 1,000 Rand a month every year for 3 years? Sibanye is saying we can only give you 850. Anything more would basically lead to a loss-making entity.
I'm always positive when the parties do come together. A strike or a dispute can be resolved. And I think, what complicates things is that the gap between the highest paid and the lowest paid does frustrate workers to see that you are not being frank. On the other hand, we are seeing this high level of salaries paying yourself and your colleagues. When it comes to us, we don't get that. In a collective bargaining, it's a give and take. So both parties must make certain compromises in order to settle a strike.
Do you think workers will have to come down from the demand of 1,000 Rand a year?
As I say, both parties must make certain concessions. Is it coming down? Is it going up? Both parties must make concessions. Otherwise, there will be no resolution to the strike. And the danger is that workers are losing more. Remember, they don't have reserves. Like the company can still using its stockpile to produce gold. But workers don't have that advantage. And once they break up voluntarily because of the economic pressure they're feeling, then there's going to be violence.
And let's talk about the bargaining power and who holds how much sway. This has been going on now for 2 months, right? Yet and still, the parties have been able to maintain this tension, and there's still been no solution. Who needs who more?
I think both parties need one another, unfortunately, because the employer needs to continue production in order to make the company profitable and sustainable. The workers need to earn a salary. So both parties are losing.
Let me talk to you about the ANC. The African National Congress, as we know, stands on the shoulders of the tripartite alliance. A key part of that is Cosatus through Labour and its strength as commanding force in that space, even though we're hearing that union membership numbers have been dropping over the last decade and a half or so. What does it mean for a party, a former liberation movement that had such close ties with Labour, to now have its president booed at a Workers' Day rally precisely because of Labour-related issues?
Well, this is not the first time the president was booed. We have seen it in Mangaung, where the former president was booed. For me, really, there's nothing wrong for Cosatus to have a relationship at the political level. Globally, this is what we've seen. You can go to the US, you go to the UK, Sweden, you name it, Turkey, Germany, where you'll have Labour saying, we will support this political party because we think that we can make concessions, we can have policy advantages, right? The problem is that if that relationship compromises the primary interest you represent, which is workers' interest, then you're in danger. So Cosatus must be able to say, when come to the interest of those we represent, no politics. In other words, the alliance doesn't matter, right? The alliance is about surety and to ensure that you have a vehicle to influence. If you look at the Labour Relations Act, the basic condition of employment, that came through the alliance.
So Cosatus then says, even Zingi Salosi in her immediate reaction last night said that what happened yesterday at the Royal Bafokeng Stadium was inevitable, long time coming. Yet the same Cosatus remains committed to its relationship with the ANC. Does that make sense, especially when you consider just how disillusioned workers, not only from the NUM are, but in the public sector as well?
I think there must be a distinction that while there is an alliance where Cosatus has an alliance with the ANC, it will be wrong for Cosatus to expect the ANC or its president to be a steward of any of its union. That will be wrong. If there is such expectation, I'll be disappointed. That said, if it's about policy formulation, where the ANC is drifting from the agreed policy formulation, then Cosatus has a case to say, we will back you or we won't back you because you are moving away from what we thought you are, ideologically and otherwise.
Let me get your thoughts on something else that was announced on Workers' Day yesterday. EFF Commander-in-Chief Julius Malema saying the party is also exploring the establishment of its own labour union. How exciting a prospect do you think that is for labour in this country?
For me, that's not helpful at all, Temegile. We've got already 254 registered trade unions, 24 federations. So it's a further fragmentation of organized labor. Remember, they are only representing 21.7%. So whatever union you're forming, they are eating from one another, not recruiting those who are outside the labor. So it's not helping. You are actually going to be weakening the unions. They are already weak as we speak.
Can that weakness be reversed then, given just how weak labor unions are currently?
It can only be reversed, Megile, if the unions can be strategic and not be selfish, represent even the millions of unemployed, fight for them to come to the workplace so then there's an opportunity for growth. Secondly, there was a call long time ago, one industry, one union, one federation, one country. If they can't get into that point, the employer, by the way, will be the one who's leading the league of exploitation, because they will take advantage that there's fragmentation and there's divided organized labor.
Frans